Could Brexit have been changed by teenage voters?
Video games, harmful or harmless?
Teachers' strike affects student education.
Rio Olympics, will the legacy live on? We speak to a 100-metre Olympic gold medalist.
On the 27th of June, millions of UK citizens over the age of 18 voted on whether to remain or leave in the European Union. The end result was almost 52% in leaving. This was intended to be a democratic process decided by those who were affected. However, 16 to 17-year-olds were not given a voice in the matter, despite being massively affected by the outcome. The general consensus around Stag Hill campus was that it would have been beneficial to lower the minimum voting age to 16 in the EU referendum.
Okay, one, I think it would have brought a change, because at least that age, they are almost aware of what is happening, and I think they can make informed choices.
I think it's a brilliant idea. I think that so long as you have a good understanding of politics, and I think by the age of 16 you should, I don't see why it shouldn't be brought down to the age of 16. You're not a child anymore. You're not stupid. But I do think politics needs to be in education. I think it should be in education anyway. I don't think you can just say, oh, here, you can have a vote, because you don't always know what's going on.
Yeah, a lot of my friends have younger siblings around that age, and they were all saying, you know, they should be allowed to vote, because ultimately, if Article 50 is invoked, it won't affect anyone for another 2 years, by which time those people, the changes that have been made from this referendum will affect the younger generation, i.e. those people that are currently 16 and 17.
I think it would probably be a good thing, given that I feel that the younger people did a bit more research and thinking about the outcome of the vote than some of the older people did.
We are joined in the studio by Dr. Laura Harvey, who has carried out extensive research on youth culture. To what extent do you think the 16 to 18-year-olds could contribute to the discussion around the recent EU referendum?
I think they could make a huge contribution. In the research that I've done with young people, they often have really strong views about things. They think a lot about inequality, they think a lot about the world around them, and I think it's important that because of that they have a say.
Mm-hmm. What is the likelihood of, when voting, that young people's decisions could be influenced by parents or guardians?
I don't know. I mean, I think that the starting point of that question is perhaps a bit patronising towards young people, as though they don't have their own views, they don't think about things themselves. And in fact, a few years ago, Scott Sen carried out some research about this and spoke to young people and asked them whether they were voting in the same way as their parents. And only about half of them were voting in the same way. And that might not just be because they're influenced by their parents, it might just be that they share the same kind of political views.
Thank you for coming with us, Laura.
Thousands of people in England have seen school closures or disruptions as the National Union of Teachers staged a one-day strike. The teachers were striking due to a long-running dispute with the government over funding cuts. Teachers have complained that schools have received major budget cuts in the past year, some reaching up to 10%. It has been described as one of the worst cuts in over 40 years. Opinions are split on the extent of the strike impact regarding the futures of the students.
That teacher strikes in general are kind of a double-edged sword, because you want the teachers to get paid as much as they need to get paid, and you want schools to have enough funding to employ teachers, especially in academic times that are kind of up and down at the moment, like they are now.
I know teachers are very much overworked and underpaid at most places, so I think they have every right to strike.
They have, I guess, every right to strike for their own rights and to get what they want.
Again, it's the same thing as the doctor striking. It's detrimental to our health, but if they don't do it, then the government will just take the mickey out and won't improve their situation.
Usually when teachers strike, people take notice, and when people take notice, then the administrations or the government can take a look at what they're doing and reallocate budgets and maybe give the schools and the teachers the funding that they deserve.
Do video games have a positive or negative impact on teenage education? Statistics show that 80% of males play video games compared to 61% of females aged 16 to 24, on a regular basis. Research also shows that nearly 1 in 10 young gamers are addicted to video games, but only 26% of these game players are actually under 18. A number of recent studies have indicated that video games, even the violent ones, help teenagers develop intellectual skills that support academic achievement. However, many views are still mixed.
I'm going to say it's bad. I think that education, in terms of the education that they receive at home from their families and from their friends and from school, is much more important to build up their personality and character, much more than video games. So I don't think that any video game could have an adverse effect on their education whatsoever.
I don't play video games, but my sister does, and she's into computing. So for her, in terms of education, she enjoys it and it helps with her computer skills. But for other people, I feel it's a distraction, especially if you're living on your own at uni away from your parents. Then people don't get on with their work. And that's what I think.
I think video games have got a place. I think too much time in front of video games isn't good. When I was a child, I'd play football and things like that, and that was always my priority. I think there is still a place for video games. There's nothing wrong with a bit of fun. And there's definitely a place for video games that could be educational. So it's something that should be measured, but is definitely something that could be used for education, yes.
I think parents need to be really careful and to not to give the kids for a long time, leaving them. Sometimes they can log into some sites that they can download some games that they really learn things that maybe they teach them violence and yeah.
Despite these views, 58% of parents believe that video games help their children to gain more skills.
52% of young people have played educational video games.
95% of teachers use digital games that were created for educational use.
And now on to sport. The London 2012 Olympics had a positive effect on young people, encouraging them to engage in sport more often. According to the BBC webpage, 42% of the children wanted to take up new sport since the Games but aren't able to due to the lack of local facilities. With just under 6 weeks to go, there has been a rising concern for the success of the 2016 Rio Olympics. Will Rio stand up to the legacy of London 2012 Games?
Personally, I really like the Olympics. I think the Olympics are a fantastic sporting event, very exciting every 4 years. Bit sceptical about them being in Rio this year, if I'm honest, with the Zika virus and also other controversial things that go on around or been reported in the press with regards to the build-up to the Olympics in Rio as well. So a little bit sceptical, but nonetheless I think it will still be a very good sporting event.
Well, I think it is a good decision to have it in Rio because it's a beautiful city in Brazil, so I think it will be really nice for the tourists, but also the local economy in Rio as well could really benefit from having this kind of tourism. But I do understand the opposition to having it in Rio because of the controversy with the city and its safety at the minute, but also whether the stadium and the equipment is actually going to be ready on time. So I'm kind of on the fence, but overall I would say I think it's a good decision to have it kind of in Rio.
Well, it will never be better than the London Olympics. I was lucky enough to be there and it was amazing. I think in Brazil there's quite a disparity in the rich and the poor, so some of the people who live in poverty are...
Well, it's a lot to live up to. I mean, London Olympics was, from my perspective, it was brilliant. I really enjoyed it and it inspired me to get involved with some different sports, but actually, you know, the idea was to inspire a generation and to inspire children to get them to anticipate in sports, but I don't think it worked very well.
Realistically, London is the best Olympics ever.
We're joined in the studio by Alan Wells, the 100-metre Olympic gold medal winner. Alan, thank you for joining us.
No problem.
How did it feel to be part of the Olympic Games in 1980?
Oh, it was a great honour, great privilege. Moscow was a different kind of games because the political overtones around it, but running for your country is a fantastic thing to do, and to achieve what I did was unbelievable. It's the ultimate you can do in the sport.
And are you still passionate about the Olympics after winning 2 medals?
Oh yeah, I mean every time doesn't matter what event it is, but on track and field when they're running, you do feel that you're there. You understand what the atmosphere's like, and you understand what the athletes are going through. So it's every time the Olympics comes up, you do feel, and you go through the same motions as you did when you were an athlete.
And are you planning to watch the Rio Games?
Oh, absolutely. You know, it's. I think it's the best way to watch the Olympics. You see so many different sports, and it doesn't cost you too much.
Do you think it will be just as inspiring as the London 2012 Games?
Yeah, I think it will. I think that Olympics do. It has that attraction. It has that motivation and inspiration, and the young generation will get a fantastic boost from it. But not only that, there's a feel-good factor, and that feel-good factor will be in Rio, because we had it here in London. There's no doubt about it.
Thank you.
That's all we have time for in this edition of Stag Hill School News.
Hope you've enjoyed the show, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Goodbye.